Is this the end of a dynasty? Does anybody deserve to win the NFC East? And this Texas team is about to look very different. Stick around because this is the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions.
This is ridiculous to consider this team in college football playoff contention at all. Is incredible. The fact that it's named the Cy-Hawk Trophy already makes it the best trophy of any rivalry.
If Mark Sanchez wants to eat a hot dog under like this, he can just go get a hot dog and go for the vending machine.
Breaking that rule. Give me Texas. Come on. Wrapping up the home
All right, would you give Sam Ellinger for his birthday?
The respect he deserves in the name.
We need someone in my family to have a birthday next week so I can continue winning.
I guess we'll get into it. Always enthusiastic, unbelievable, hard-nosed.
All right, let me explain why Aaron Judge is getting it. You can boo me all you want.
I knew Texas was going to win, and then one of the Texas team was going to lose.
Hammy. I don't like the Hammy.
Wait, you don't like this guy?
All right, I'm done.
This is all chaos.
Welcome back to College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. I'm your host, Turner Barnes. We have an incredible show lined up for you. Throughout the course of the semester, we kept a running total of the top point earners this semester. Tonight, all 6 of them will fight to the death until only one remains. John did not know what he was signing up for. All right, we're going to start with 3, do a couple questions, go to the next 3, and then the 2 will face off in rapid fire. Number 1 seed, Zach. How you feeling, Zach?
I am feeling good. 2 wins under my belt. You know, I'm feeling good. However, I am down right now because somebody did have a great design. So unfortunately,
That's
I will need
true.
to make a comeback right now. But I think I can do it. So I'm excited for this show, though.
All right, and for our non-Facebook Live viewers, at the beginning of the show, we had a competition. John won. He's starting with 2 points. John, how you feeling?
I'm feeling really good. You know, unlike Zach here, I only have 1 win, but I've been on a couple of times, and I'm looking to win.
All right, the 3 seed, John, and now the 5 seed, Henry. How you feeling, Henry?
I feel great. You know, I'm a number 5 seed. This reminds me of a time when I was in the 5th grade playing Little League baseball. I was my team was number 5 seed in a 6-team league. Won the championship. So.
Oh, all right. Maybe a little bit of magic in the air.
I mean, I've already done it. So.
All right. Well, let's dive right in.
go in.
All right. The Texas Longhorns defeated the Texas Tech Red Raiders 49-24 on Friday to finish the regular season 7-5. Texas is the only team that was in the preseason top 10 who ended the year unranked. Currently, Texas fans are disappointed, but was this season a failure? Anybody concerned?
Well, this is an interesting point because you say failure is such a big word. People always, because you want to think about failure, disappointment. I mean, watch. I'd say it's definitely a disappointment this year. Failure is a fair word if you want to put it in there, but disappointment in the sense that you're a top 10 team. You just came off a Sugar Bowl win against Georgia. You have Sam Ellinger coming back. You have Colin Johnson coming back. You're ready and primed. You have the chance against LSU early in the year. However, you didn't get the wins, especially the turning point of the season coming into that TCU road loss. Devastating for the Longhorns. But I think when you look back at this season, it was a very injury-ridden season. And if you're a Longhorn fan, yes, this year was a terrible year for the Longhorns. However, you had a lot of young guys step in, take some roles. They had to take some early punches. They're going to have some disappointments. However, this might be good for the future of the Longhorns. And watch, there were coaching changes recently that occurred, and these coaching changes will help. But overall, this season, I would say, was just a very big disappointment.
All right, so disappointment, not a failure. What about y'all?
I think, 7-5 for your average football team wouldn't be considered a failure. However, the Longhorns had so many opportunities this season to go far. They started the season ranked pretty fairly. They had the opportunity to play LSU and almost beat LSU and Oklahoma. They had the chance to go to the college football playoff this year if they, made the plays and won the games. However, they didn't. They became 7-5. And I think because of all that hype, the opportunities that were missed, I think it is a failure for this season.
All right, so maybe a failure because of the expectations heading into it. Henry?
I mean, yeah, I'm going to agree with Coach Andy Reid here. I mean, it was a failure, and I don't take any pleasure in saying that. But, I mean, now maybe the problem was that the expectations before the season were put too high by Coach Tom Herman. maybe that's, the reason. Maybe they shouldn't be putting the expectations this high. But in terms of the expectations, yeah, I say it was a failure. Now, it wasn't totally in the team's control. Obviously, there were, injuries and maybe like an unlucky loss here or there. But bottom line is, coming off the season they had last year and the expectations they had this year, the #1 recruiting class in the Big 12, the #3 recruiting class in the nation, for them to go 7-5, not even play for a Big 12 championship, I mean, yeah, that's a failure by any measure.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, watch, they had a lot of hype around them, I'd say. But Texas is one of those brands in college football, the Longhorn brand, where you're going to get put in the top 10 after a successful season. We saw it in 2016. They won a game against Notre Dame, got put in the top 11, and they didn't even have a winning record that year. That's the type of way Texas, the Longhorn fans are, and the Longhorn brand is. The hype is always going to be there, and this year they didn't live up to it. They have a chance now, but that's the way Texas is. It's one of those, even like a Michigan, that's not super successful, unlike an Alabama or Clemson, but will always be in there due to the fact it's the Longhorn brand.
You mentioned the injuries. I feel like during this season, injuries were brought up as an excuse, but I feel like after a while, you just can't make that excuse. You have to adapt to the situation you're in, and I feel like the Longhorns never really adapted to that situation.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good points all around. I don't know if I would peg it as a failure. Definitely a disappointment, a huge disappointment. But there are all sorts of reasons as to why. And the bottom line is it has to get better soon. And so, speaking of that, Texas head coach Tom Herman made some major changes after the Tech game, firing defensive coordinator Todd Orlando and demoting offensive coordinator Tim Beck. Wide receiver coach Drew Maringer also got the axe, and inside receiver coach Corby Meekins was reassigned. Texas fans finally got what they were asking for. But what do y'all think? Was this the right move? Was it maybe too much moving around?
I think it was a good move. As I said in the previous segment, adjustments weren't being made. The Longhorns weren't adapting to new situations, and that caused them to struggle defensively. And on the offense, I feel like in the beginning of the season, Sam was able to really move and had more freedom, and the Longhorns scored and won games that way. However, in the latter half of the season, he seemed to be restricted, and as we all know, they lost the games. So I think it's a good move.
It's actually funny. I literally in a class today, running sports with Professor Robbins, we had a debate whether Tom Herman was the problem or the coaches were the problem.
Okay.
The side I was placed on was Tom Herman is the problem. My opinion is I think blame goes all the way around. And so I think that it's on both Herman and the coaches, but I think Herman firing these coaches is the kettle calling the pot black. Is that the expression?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Yeah. Basically, my point is that the mistakes that the coaches have made alongside Herman are also kind of similar mistakes that Herman has made, and Herman is not innocent in this case. So, do I think firing the coaches are going to make Texas better? I mean, maybe, but I think part of the blame falls on Herman as well.
It was the right move to fire these coaches that were fired for the Longhorns. Watch, Todd Orlando in his tenure at Texas, you just didn't see any improvements. This year they were 8th in points per game in the Big 12 and 9th in passing yards.
Out of 10.
Out of 10, exactly, right? So they were way in the bottom half of the Big 12. Now, I do think that the receiving coach also, I feel like more attention is getting on Todd Orlando. That's understandable. It's a whole defense. It's a coordinator. The receiving coach, I do agree with the firing there because, yes, you lost Colin Johnson, and Devin Duvernay had an exceptional year, but that's more on Devin Duvernay. I think he didn't develop a Brendan Eagles, a Jake Smith, who you saw in the beginning of the year, even a Malcolm Epps, who you saw potential in the beginning of the year. And then at points, we were wondering, where's Jake? Fans were wondering, where's Jake Smith?
Yeah.
Where is Brendan Eagles? Can Brendan Eagles run a route other than a straight fly? You didn't see it. So, fine, Drew Maringer was 100% the right move.
Yeah, and there was also, a little under-the-table controversy going on with Maringer, so that's definitely a good move. Nobody's backing up Todd Orlando. Whenever he got his team back, they had some pretty good games, but
yeah, it was a big debate.
Like I said, I don't think all the blame falls on him. I'm not saying he was perfect,
yeah.
But it's probably not fair to put all the blame on him. I guess that's kind of what it's looking like, him being fired and Herman's keeping his job, but Herman's the man in charge. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Utah defensive coordinator Morgan Scaley was an early name in the rumor mill to take Todd Orlando's place at Texas. Scaley, however, shut the door quickly and said he was not considering the job. with so many options out there, who would you like to see step in at the coordinator positions? Let's keep it quick.
Yeah, just let me go really quick on this. I don't really know too much about the coordinator, so I'm just going to say there was an application online for this job. Thomas Fitch is the man for the job.
Thomas Fitch. Okay, we have a Thomas Fitch vote.
Yeah, coordinator-wise, the one that definitely stuck out is Graham Harrell's name. I've heard even Tom Herman had conversations with Graham Harrell. However, with the news today that Clay Helton is staying, I could see Graham Harrell potentially staying because I think the idea with Graham Harrell was that he was going to be out. With Helton out, that means a new staff comes in, and Harrell was looking for a new place. There's still a chance, but I definitely also thought defensively Morgan Scalley would have been a great choice. However, you said he shut it down. I know a lot of people are praising Chris Ash's name. Maybe that's more the nepotism in the sense that he worked with Herman at Ohio State. He did get fired from Rutgers. I understand as a coordinator, you maybe were better, and that's what we saw some with coaches like even like a Charlie Strong, who was a great coordinator but wasn't a great head coach necessarily. However, I think Chris Ash could get the shot.
Yeah, I believe in Chris Ash for the defensive coordinator position. I feel like if they worked together, they had that chemistry at Ohio State, especially during that winning season, I think that'd be really good for the team, and I think it would help improve the team going into the future.
Do you have an idea for offensive coordinator? Or?
Thomas Fitch.
Thomas Fitch. Okay, we have 2 votes for Thomas Fitch for offensive coordinator.
Thomas Fitch on a boat.
Thomas Fitch on a boat. All right. Okay, so I think Harrell's a good idea. I've heard Joe Brady from LSU a lot.
I don't know. That's going to be tough to get him.
It's going to be really tough to get him. I don't know how experienced he is at the college level.
Maybe a lot of money to get him as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of money. So, Zach, I haven't been saying the score. That's on me. Zach, you've caught up to John. You're at 8. John, you're at 8. Henry, you're at 7. All right. There has been a great couple of ideas thrown out there for Texas to play in their upcoming bowl game, such as another instant classic against USC or Notre Dame, or maybe even a reunion with Mac Brown in North Carolina. Texas A&M is already off the table, so put that out of your minds. Who do y'all think is a good matchup for Texas this year?
I think if Texas is able to make the adjustments and play well in the bowl season, I think Oregon would be a great pick. If they're able to beat Oregon, it'd put Texas in great favor with the AP committee going into next season. If they don't make those adjustments, I'd rather see Notre Dame.
Okay, so Oregon or Notre Dame?
To be honest, I don't care. Like, what does this bowl game mean, really? I've never actually thought bowl games were, like, such big deals. Like, the reason titles are called titles, like the Big 12 title, is because you get the title Big 12 champions. Yes, you get Alamo Bowl champion title, but to me, that's like a title for one game isn't really much of a big deal. So I would say maybe like a USC, like sure, that'd be interesting. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it matters too much.
I don't see the Longhorns getting in the Alamo Bowl. I just think the way it will turn out, Baylor might end up there. However, I do see Texas having a rematch with Notre Dame like they had in 2015, 2016 in the Camping World Bowl in Orlando. I believe that the Longhorns and Notre Dame will be a great matchup. 2 historical programs fighting it out in Orlando. Watch, you could say bowl games don't matter or anything like that, but they still bring attraction. They still bring fans to the games, and they're still interesting to see. You compete against a team that was not on your schedule to start the year and see, if you are equal level to them or not.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I want to point out. Another reason I don't like bowl games is because half these NFL prospects sit out these bowl games.
That's fair.
So it's like,
That's a good point. That's a good point. But I mean, I would totally be down for another Notre Dame Texas game. I really like Oregon, but I think they have too good of a record. But going into the break, Zach and John, you're at 10. Henry, you're at 9. When we come back, the panel debates how the Texas volleyball team matches up in the upcoming tournament and who deserves that 4th spot in the college football playoff. Welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. Before we get started, let's remind the audience of the score. Zach and John, you guys are at 10. Henry, right there at 9.
I'll tell you.
All right, let's jump right in. The Texas Longhorn volleyball team heads into the NCAA tournament at the number 2 seed, meaning Texas will host their competition until the Final Four. Possible roadblocks for Texas include Western Kentucky, Minnesota, or Florida. But which of these 3 teams pose the biggest threat to the Longhorns? Zach, we'll start with you.
Interesting. Yeah, so all these teams, right now, I checked. So a lot of these teams are coming in hot. They have 3-4 game winning streaks. Longhorns did lose one of their more recent games. However, I do think this is the Longhorns division and seeding or bracket. I mean, side of the bracket. I think they'll cruise to the Final Four easily. However, it's weird in volleyball. You have different math, right? Because you have Minnesota lost to Texas earlier, but then you also have Florida who beat Stanford, who Texas lost to. It's all random. That's why anything is possible. And who knows? Western Kentucky's 31-1. I know they're not in the greatest conference, but that's a lot of wins to get. So it's really anybody. You know what? I'll go Florida just because they beat Stanford. It's a common opponent, so I'll go with that. Why not? The Gators.
All right, John.
I don't think any of these teams are really going to be a challenge for Texas. I think the selection committee put Texas at number 2 for a reason, not number 4 or 3 like they were in the AP poll. Number 2, and I think that's because they believe that Texas will make it to the championship game.
All right, confidence there.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with John. Don't sleep on Minnesota. I'll say that to answer the question. I think Minnesota does a great job playing up to their competition. They play well against pretty good teams. However, like John said, I don't think any of these 3 teams we mentioned are too big of roadblocks for Texas. And I know they dropped to 4 in the AP poll. I guess I understand it because they lost to Baylor. But they lost to Baylor in 5 sets. When Baylor came to Texas, they were a complete mismatch and beat them in straight sets. So I think Texas is still riding high into the playoffs, and I think they're going to, like John said, I think they're going to make the championship.
All right, so we got 2 confident guys, but, I mean, you have to have some sort of realism where Florida does pose a issue for Texas. Like you said, they beat Stanford. Hey, all right. So, Zach, you're going to get the point here. Florida, I think, Texas already handled Minnesota. I don't think Western Kentucky is a big issue. But so Florida, it may be a road bump along the way. All right, the college football playoff picture is pretty much set. Assuming LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson win their conference championship games, only 1 spot remains. Oklahoma, Baylor, Utah, and Georgia all have a shot to sneak in. But who deserves it most? John, we're going to start with you.
Oklahoma's had their chance in the past. They've been struck out of the playoffs.
Okay.
Georgia, the SEC doesn't deserve another team in the playoff.
No, we said
Still no.
assuming LSU losses. Okay.
Levi Stadium may be closer to Oregon. However, I think the muss is going to show up. I'm taking the Utes.
The Utes. Okay. All right.
The team that deserves the 4th spot is the team that's there right now, and that's Georgia. And to me, as much as I love Utah, when you look at the college football playoff, there's only 4 spots. So you got to look at teams and the strength of their schedule. Now, had Utah been undefeated, I would say I would maybe give them the edge. But all these teams have 1 loss, so you got to look at the strength of the schedule and how they've done. Oklahoma hasn't beaten many ranked teams. They've only ranked team I believe they beat was Baylor, unless I'm forgetting someone. And they had trouble against Texas, against TCU, lost to Kansas State. Georgia beat some pretty ranked teams. Georgia beat some pretty good ranked teams, so I have to give them the edge. I would say the college football playoff, it's a lot like college admissions to really good universities, perhaps the University of Texas, where there's just a lot of people are qualified, but there's just not enough spots. And so you just got to pick one.
All right.
Yeah, so this one's interesting here. I'm assuming I'm going to go off the fact that I think LSU will beat Georgia, meaning Georgia will be eliminated. Now we have 2 teams I think that deserve it. I think Oklahoma will beat Baylor, and I think Utah will beat Oregon. So now you have to decide between that, right? So now it actually favors Oklahoma in the strength of schedule. However, they do have a common opponent, which is UCLA. And one thing I do like about Utah, so I'm going to pick Utah to clarify that there. Yeah. Utah has blown out their competition. And I know you're giving your competition, and people criticize Clemson since they are playing weak competition, but Clemson blew out the ACC as well. And Utah, for a stretch since losing to USC, which is not a great loss, but it's looking a little better since they're now ranked, they've blown out the competition and really have done a good job. Their offense with Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss is excellent. Their defense has plenty of NFL pros on there. And I think you got to give Utah a chance. If they win and beat Oregon, they've been ranked above Oklahoma and Baylor all year. So I think Utah is definitely deserving to get in that 4th spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Utah. I think if Georgia loses to LSU in the championship game, they have 2 losses, so they're out. I mean, I'm going to pull a Mark Skoll Jr. here and give both of you guys the points because I can't decide between Utah or Utah. So you're both going to get a point.
Not Utah.
Shout out to Mark Skoll if you're watching. All right.
I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is. All right. MVP frontrunner Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens took down the surprise of the NFL San Francisco 49ers on Sunday. In a thrilling 20-17 win. Justin Tucker booted the game-winning field goal in the rain as the time expired. Both teams now boast a 10-2 record and are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. But will they both make it all the way? Did we see a preview to Super Bowl 54 in Week 14? Henry, I'll start with you.
No, it's not a preview to Super Bowl 54 because neither of these two teams are going to be in the Super Bowl. I believe that the Seattle Seahawks are going to win their conference.
Boo.
Because I think when it comes down to it against them and the 49ers, they have the quarterback with the experience. They have more of a team that has experience in the playoffs. So I would give them the edge in that conference. And then you look at the conference of the Ravens. I think the Ravens have the better chance between the 49ers and the Ravens to be in the Super Bowl. But I think that in this conference, I'm actually going to go with the Chiefs as the favorites. Tom Brady and the Patriots, obviously, they're going to be there. But if they were to make this would mean they'd get to 4 straight Super Bowls. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have never been to 4 straight Super Bowls. Obviously, it could happen, but it hasn't happened. I don't think it's going to happen. So I think the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes having a year under his belt in the playoffs is going to supersede Lamar Jackson and his non-experience.
All right. Zach?
I agree with you that these two teams will not make the Super Bowl. They both will not make the Super Bowl. However, I do disagree with the teams that you picked. I'll go with the NFC first. I do think the Saints will make it. I think the Saints are a very motivated team. They've looked great all year. Defensively, they're great. Offensively, they have all the studs, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara. I think they're very motivated from last year. The past few years, actually, they've had chances. They've blown it in the playoffs. Then we go to the AFC. And I love the Chiefs. However, I know the Patriots have struggled, but it's still the Patriots conference. They have dominated this conference, and when it comes playoff time, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady know how to make the adjustments. They are just winners. This defense is legit. I know they struggled against Deshaun Watson, but he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL for a reason. The Patriots are the team to beat there. They've shown it throughout the whole time, and granted, they've lost plenty of games. They've gone to Super Bowls 11-5, so they're only 10-2. They're excellent right now. I don't care they've lost that game. They'll have a good chance this week against the Chiefs to prove to me that they're still a top team in the AFC. So those are my two, the Patriots versus the Saints.
Yep.
John, you're shaking your head over there.
I disagree. Since the Ravens lost to the Browns, a little switch flicked off in Lamar Jackson's head, and they have been the team that's dominated the AFC. I mean, they beat the Patriots, a feat that none of the other teams in the AFC have had the ability to. And I think if they had to replay the Chiefs, that they'd beat the Chiefs. Looking at the NFC, I agree with the Saints. I think they've already clinched a playoff berth. They're looking revenge. Everyone knows what happened last season in the playoffs, and I think that'll be a great game to watch. And I think it's going to be the Super Bowl, with the Ravens winning, of course. Plenty more ankles to break with Lamar Jackson at the helm.
All right, so we have Saints, Pats, Ravens, Saints, and Seahawks, Chiefs. I think I got to give it to John. I know I've gone against Tom Brady and the Patriots so many times, and I'm hesitant to do it again, but this Ravens team has been dominating for so long. But that means we have a tie. That means we have a tie in the first block. What do we do? What do we do?
You do a rapid fire that's worth 10 points.
It's between Zach and John.
and Henry.
Let us both move on. Come on.
Yeah, we can have a 3-man rapid fire.
We have to be already.
Oh, okay. All right.
The bonus points.
He gave him the bonus points before the round started.
Oh, wow. What a
So we're doing rock, paper, scissors?
Even with the bonus points?
All right, rock, paper, scissors.
Just
one
What are we
time.
doing?
One time to move on.
Paper,
I'll be the
scissors,
ref.
shoot.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay.
Rock,
Wait,
Whoa.
sorry.
This is
rock,
intense.
paper, scissors, shoot. You got me.
All right, John Kelly. We'll be moving on.
goes number 1.
Our first finalist is John Kelly.
On rock,
Stick
paper,
around for the
scissors.
second round of the semifinals, where the panelists debate which basketball team on campus has the higher upside.
Don't make it a tie next time. Don't make it.
All right, welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. We have 3 more great panelists for you. This is the 2, 4, 6 seed, 2 seed, Justin Morris. How are you doing, Justin?
I'm doing real well. I'm excited. I'm honored to be on the stage with these guys, and I'm ready to, take home this dub for the entire season.
All right, 4 seed, Robert Trevino. Robert?
This is what it's all about. Everybody's clamoring for the 4 seed in college football. I'm the 4 seed. I feel like I need to pull in Ohio State in 2014.
All right, going to win it all? All right, how you doing? How you doing?
I'm that 8th seed in the NCAA tournament who gets lucky, wins their conference tournament, and definitely feel like the underdog, but somehow manages to win a couple games on weird buzzer beaters. That's how I'm feeling tonight.
All right,
You're in the-
Clark
you're in
Dalton
the
going for the
elite.
Cinderella story.
Cinderella.
Speaking of Cinderella stories in the Sweet 16, let's talk some basketball.
All right.
The Texas basketball teams got off to vastly different starts. The men, who didn't make the NCAA tournament last year, are 7-1 with a win over Purdue, while the women are 4-4 with a game against Tennessee coming up. In recent memory, the women have been much better than the men, but this year, who do you think has the higher potential upside?
I think that the Texas men's basketball team is just playing phenomenal. They are really embracing that team effort that we really have not seen as fans since Shaka Smart has taken over as head coach. Texas women's basketball is really, like you said, 4-4, not off to that hard of a start, but you have to appreciate and give a big hurrah to what Shaka Smart's doing right now. He's leading that team, and he's got guys like Matt Coleman, Jace Febres, who are leading both in that locker room and on the court too, and they're just off to the best start in Shaka Smart's area, deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, I sat here all last year, heard, oh, fire Shaka, fire Shaka. He was the man for the job, and he's finally put in his work. He's done his due diligence, and now Texas is on fire. Apart from that one loss to Georgetown, which was not as bad as it looked on television, they have been playing great basketball. This is not a knock at the women's basketball team because they've had some injuries. Shook Sutton isn't 100%. You had Charisma Ortiz, who couldn't play after the transfer from Penn State. Starting off 4-4, they just have a small rotation, and they're really relying on Charlie Collier and Joyner Holmes. So that's kind of expected from the women's basketball, that it was going to be a down year. You can tell Coach Aston, she's had 7 great years. So this year, a little bit of an off year, but it's really more a testament to how good the men's basketball team has been playing.
This men's basketball team is the epitome of team this far. It's kind of weird because in college basketball, it's a lot different than the NBA. The NBA, we have the idea of the super team where they're just uber talented. You have a bunch of guys. But in college, it's not necessarily about having all those 5-star recruits. It's getting that right recipe to make a championship effort eventually. And I'm not saying that Texas will win the national championship, but I like where it's going because they're playing together. They're all accounting for each other, fitting into their roles, and that's helping Texas win games. Now, for Karen Aston's team, I think it's a lack of chemistry that we've seen just because you had the injuries last season and the team didn't get as much time together to get that gel that they needed to go further this season through the first 8 games, and they played some pretty good teams, and I think that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, all of you guys are right. I think the men have a very high upside this year because of that team mentality. Shaka Smart looks like he's coaching into more time here at Texas. Just maybe give him a little bit of time, and then you can see that he maybe was the man for the job.
Yeah, give him the rest of the season.
Yeah, give him the rest of the season. Don't extend him now.
Yeah.
But definitely looking like a great team. The men are. So everybody's starting off with 3 points for the first question. Everybody said the men. All right, go.
It's anybody's game.
Speaking of the men basketball team, Courtney Ramey hit 2 clutch free throws with 8.4 seconds remaining to help the Longhorns narrowly edge McNeese State 73-71 on Saturday. Texas is riding high so far this year. So how concerned are you with this close game to a much inferior team?
I'm a little bit concerned, but it's not, oh my God, it's time to press the panic button on Texas. Look, there have been a lot of weird upsets so far this year. Duke lost to Stephen F. Austin.
Woo!
Stephen F. Austin, they're a very, very good mid-major. That's a team Duke should usually throttle by like 30 points at least. And I think it's where we saw these amazing freshmen last year, specifically Zion Williamson leaving the world of college basketball and Texas having their own in Jackson Hayes, where there's not as much of a talent gap between these smaller schools in Texas. And now McNeese State, they're not great, but they'll play you tough. A lot of their games, they have lost by only 10 points or less. So they fight till the bitter end. So even though it's not a great McNeese State team, I think Texas does need to play better, but it's not a sign of bad things that are going to come later down the road.
Yeah.
You kind of came after Stephen F. Austin there. Let's not rag on the boys from
I said
Nacogdoches.
the Midian.
NCAA tournament, they
I
get
gave
some,
the respect.
They get
Don't
some
say
wins.
I disrespected Stephen F.
A little
Austin.
bit from the boys from Nacogdoches, but that's not my main point. My main point would be that, well, let's go to last year. Do I want to say the one word? Radford. We all remember that. That was a big panic button, but what I think this was, I mean, it's kind of finals week. You had the guys thinking of something. They didn't cover the spread. Great for me, bad for Texas basketball. But personally, I don't think this is a panic button. You saw the way that they were handling the game. I think the guys have matured. I think that the players that they have really buy into Shaka Smart's system. When I was watching the Radford game last year, you just didn't see that. You didn't feel that in the building. I feel like this year there's that kind of moody center, Matthew McConaughey,
thump your chest, feel it with this basketball team. And whether or not they go to the tournament, whether or not they go to the Sweet 16, this team is playing basketball.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzz around the team right now for sure. But
Yeah,
Justin?
I think the one thing that the McNeese State game did do is it kind of exposed the holes that Texas basketball has, and flat out, it just comes down to just getting that ball into the bucket. It's kind of a pivotal part of the game. If you didn't know that, but McNeese State shot upward, like around the 50 percentile area. Texas men's basketball shot 29% in that game, and McNeese State was able to get it done. Kind of put the Longhorns on the edge. I think that it's not a big concern, but I think it's a big shock and saying, hey, like this is what's going to happen if you keep playing this way. You guys just flat out got to get better at shooting. I think all around what Shaka Smart's doing outside of that, they're playing great defense, great ball movement and stuff like that, but they just need to get that ball into the basket.
I agree. It's a little bit of a concern, but I like how you mentioned it exposed holes in this Texas team. This isn't a perfect Texas team, has some holes. So, Justin, you got 3 points on that one. So you're at 6, and you two are at 5. Close game. All right. Real quick, shout out to Baylor. Goes to CFB Austin, my little brother. All right. Karen Aston has led the Texas Longhorns women's basketball team to 4 Sweet 16 appearances in her 7 years in Austin. After a first-round exit last year and a 4-4 start this year, Aston's seat might be heating up. So what does Karen Aston have to do this year to keep her job safe?
I don't think it's time to fire Karen Aston yet. You just talked about that resume. That's a really impressive resume. Now, they did end on kind of a bad note last year, but I think that has kind of segued into this year. I think if she finishes the season with a winning record, there's no reason, start firing Karen Aston like that. I think she's an incredible coach, and she should stay at Texas. If this happens, persistently next year or something like that, then maybe, mid-season, give her the boot. But right now, I don't see any reason to wave a red flag right now. Maybe just not Texas women's basketball here. So.
Sure. Karen Aston definitely should not be on the hot seat. That's absolutely ridiculous considering where she's put Texas women's basketball. She's put it on the map and made them relevant in the Big 12. However, I think it's just a matter of reworking the offense a little bit. Texas is only averaging 71 points per game, and they're not in the top 50 even offensively. And there's this system they run. It's kind of this 1-2 system right now where they rely on 2 pieces in the offense. Charlie Collier and Joyner Holmes. They both have 17 and 16 points per game respectively. No one else has double digits. You have to raise that margin if you're going to compete with the Baylors of the world and you want to put yourself on the map in the Final Four. If Texas wants to get back where they can be, they need more offensive production, and now.
I agree with Clark. I mean, you can't rely on 2 players to have all of your rebounds and all of your points, which is why those numbers are so high. I agree with Clark once again. This talk about Aston being fired is preposterous. She's had great seasons. She's the kind of coach with the mentality that you want around your program for decades. I think Indiana, stuff happens in the NCAA tournament. It just happens. You're going to lose in the first round maybe once every year. Ask Duke, ask any team. So I think there's absolutely no reason to panic. And to your point, I think they need to right the ship this year pretty quickly because the wheels are not starting to come off, but
You're putting WD-40 on that.
yes.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Way too early to be talking about the hot seat for Karen Aston. She's been a phenomenal coach here at UT. So keep it up, Karen. We're all rooting for you. All right. For the Tournament of Champions, we are having a tournament edition of early predictions. Which team goes deeper in their respective end-of-the-year tournaments this year, men or women?
I'll go with men's. I think that this may be we always say it. We're always like, oh, this is Texas's year, but there's something kind of in the air. I think that if they can finish out this non-conference schedule pretty well with wins against Texas A&M, Providence in Rhode Island, I think that that's a big confidence booster going into a pretty tough Big 12 schedule. So I think that with playing that and playing a variety of different teams, they'll kind of have that momentum to go into maybe first, second. I'll take into a round of 32 exit, and Texas women's basketball is going to leave in the first round again.
All right.
Yeah, you can see the Big 12 Kansas is still trying to figure out, they're trying to rely around Azubuike, but they're still trying to figure him out. Texas Tech has just not looked good coming out of the gate. You do see them probably getting a little bit better in Chris Beard, but the talent that they lost is just too much. I think Texas men's basketball is set up, fluke Elite Eight, and then a national championship appearance. But you get to this point, and I think Texas men's basketball is ready to take that jump. And also, we saw on the graphic, Shaka Smart, NIT champion.
He's
Can't
already
take that away.
he won a tournament last year.
He won the last game of the season.
He won the last game of the season last year.
Texas
All right.
Tech did not.
All right.
All right, I have very specific predictions. Texas women's basketball, round of 64, first round exit, unfortunately. Then Texas men's basketball, I think they have a much better ceiling than they've had in years past, but look at the Big 12. It's a really, really deep basketball conference. Baylor played very well against Villanova, and even though Kansas is having some issues, Bill Self has been there for a long time, and they'll start to work it where they get a more smooth offense. So I think that'll hold them back, but I think they do win a game in the tournament this year just because Shaka is starting to grow comfortable with this Texas team, and they all have that cohesiveness every game that makes them dangerous for any opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. This Texas team, if you can make it to the tournament, you have an opportunity to cause an upset. So, all right, Justin, you have 10. Robert, you're at 9. And Clark, you're at 10. Robert got a little bit of ground to make up. We'll see if he can do it.
1-0
1
mentality.
point.
It's anybody's
When we
game.
come back, the panel debates who, despite their best efforts, is going to win the NFC East and is the writing on the wall for this dynasty. Welcome back to the College Crossfire Tournament of Champions. Before we dive in, let's check the score again. Justin, you and Clark are at 10. Robert, 1 point behind at 9.
1-0 mentality.
1-0 mentality. All right, let's get into it. Earlier in the show, we discussed the Texas volleyball team hosting until the Final Four. The Longhorns start the tournament against Albany and will play Texas State or UC Santa Barbara in the second round. Texas is the number 2 seed this year, so do they make it to the championship? And if not, when do they get bounced?
First off, shout out to UC Santa Barbara because they waitlisted me, and look at me now. I'm on tournament champions.
What starts here changes the world.
Starts here, changes the world. All right, I'll keep it short. I think that Texas has the ability to make it to Pittsburgh. I think if there's any team that can stop them, I think it's going to be Western Kentucky. They've ended the season really hot. I would like to see that matchup here at Gregory Jam, but I really don't think that there's going to be anything that's going to stop the Texas Longhorns from getting that ticket to Pittsburgh.
All right, so they're going to the Final Four.
They're going to the Final Four.
Do they make it to the championship?
Sure.
All right, Robert.
I agree. I think Texas has been playing just incredible. And when it comes to the volleyball team, that is the premier sports team at Texas right now. They're on all cylinders. They're up there, probably number 1. If not, you could make a case like number 2, number 3. It's all pretty much the same up there. It's going to be a hard fight for the title. They have the capacity to win it. Personally, I think they at least make it to the championship, pretty much guaranteed.
All right. Wow. All right, Clark.
Okay.
Well, earlier this year, you actually asked the same question to me on Crossfire during Facebook Live, and I said they would win the national championship.
You did.
I'm a man of my word. I hold my promises. The Texas Longhorns will be lifting the national championship trophy. Maybe it's just emotion clouding my judgment just because I love
Light the
all
tower.
the talent on this team. They have 4 players who are all Big 12. They had the Rookie of the Year, Skylar Fields, and teams cannot hit the ball past their net. They only hit 197. That is really, really hard to do defensively, and they have that combination of offense, defense, and experience to run the table in the tournament.
All right, everybody's in agreement. Texas is going to make it to the game. I think I'm going to give the point to Clark because he called it. He called it a while back. He called it.
But it hasn't happened yet.
What?
They haven't started the tournament.
I'm saying I'm giving him the point because he stuck to it. He's staying with
Don't
it.
argue with my promises.
Done.
50 points here.
All right, Saturday gave us one of the most exciting games of the year when Auburn beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl 48-45. With just over a minute left facing 4th and 4, the Auburn Tigers tricked the Tide into a 12-men on the field penalty that gave them the first down and ended the game. Of course, social media exploded. Alabama fans are calling for Saban's job, and some even said to dissolve the program. We aren't getting that crazy here. But is this the end of the Alabama dynasty as we know it? Robert.
It's going to cost me. This is going to cost me, ladies and gentlemen. They were cheated. And if you look in the past,
Put your clown mask
2012,
on.
2011, everyone's like, oh, Alabama's done, Alabama's done. They didn't make the title. They come back. Nick Saban doing his full Jimmy Hoffa impression on the sideline. Everything went wrong. 13 penalties. That's an all-time high for any Nick Saban coached team.
Bad call.
They are coming back. They are going to win another national championship within the next 2 years. Book it.
All right, Clark.
Rejoice! The dynasty is over. Alabama is done. The king is dead. Look, now Alabama. Whoa, we got to be careful with the energy there. The mic wire's coming out a little bit. Anyways, let's look at the last 3 big games Alabama has played. First, they played Trevor Lawrence in the championship game, allowed 362 yards against him. Then Joe Burrow, he goes for 393. And then Bo Nix, freshman quarterback, he's still figuring it out, only has 173 yards, but they allow 48 points against an Auburn team. Now, Ohio State and LSU are going to change the faces of the recruiting. These programs are going to be around for a long time, and Saban's getting older, and I think it's just going to be hard to compete against those 2 powerhouses. They'll still be good, though.
All right. So we have a no, we have a yes.
Look, Nick Saban losing to Auburn. I saw how mad he was on the sideline. May God have mercy on their soul next season. Oh my goodness, Nick Saban. As long as Nick Saban's coaching Alabama, this dynasty is not over. Yeah, like I said, I would be terrified to be LSU or any team in the SEC next season because Nick Saban's gonna have a vengeance next year and pin it. They're going undefeated next year.
All right. I mean, I'm actually going to agree with Robert. I think Alabama, as long as Nick Saban is there, Tua Tagovailoa was hurt this year. Alabama's not done. Alabama's going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
So Robert, you're going to get the points, and you are with it. You guys have 10. Clark, you have 11.
Oh, man.
Going into the last question. We might have another tie. I don't know.
Make it double or
Dallas
nothing.
Cowboys
Make it double or nothing.
The Dallas Cowboys were embarrassed on their home field by the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving, leaving the door open for the Philadelphia Eagles to tie up the division. Of course, Carson Wentz gets outplayed by Ryan Fitzmagic, the Eagles lose to the Dolphins, and the Cowboys keep the lead in the division. The Cowboys and Eagles play in Philly Week 16, possibly to decide who will make the playoffs. So who will? Who is going to win the terrible, no good, very bad NFC East? Clark.
This division is like when you give those soccer teams for the really young kids a participation trophy, even though they lost every game by 12. It's ridiculous. They're such good fan bases, and there's money, so they should be much better. But the team is closest to the cusp of greatness is the Dallas Cowboys. So I have to go with America's team.
You know what? They all booed, so I'm not going to pick the Dallas Cowboys. I'm trying to win this. I'm
It's a
going to
bias.
pick. Let's go with the Redskins.
Yeah!
I think that I think what they got that program is doing really well, and I think that this is Washington Redskins' year. On a side note, it's pretty sad to look at the NFC East where they do like the league-wide like division standings, and it's just like 6-6, and everyone's like 10-2. But yeah, we'll go with the Washington Redskins.
Well, we call them a program because they're more like a college football team than they are a professional football team. You look at the Giants, no. This is a process of elimination. This is like question 24. You don't know the answer. You're trying to eliminate. You go next. Is it going to be the Redskins? No. No, it's not. Let's be real here. It's not going to be the Washington Redskins.
There we go.
They're
Boo
gonna
more.
win He's not booing because he knows. And then it's between the Cowboys and the Eagles. My gut tells me the Cowboys are not going to get it done this year. And I think the Eagles are going to win, but only because the Cowboys are just going to choke down the Eagles.
Robin season.
You know, I think it's going to come down to that game in Philly. It's in Philly. The Eagles have played good in important games. I think Philly takes the division. And so we have another tie. So we got to do another rock, paper, scissors here between Clark and Robert.
All right, before we do this, gentlemen.
On shoot, one. On shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Whoa.
Clark!
Oh my goodness!
What?
What was that?
No, that's it. That's
Do it
one.
again?
That's
Go.
one. Yeah, he won.
He won. He's going on.
Yeah, why would I say what?
I'm not going to leave.
All right. When we come back, our 2 winners face off in rapid fire, and someone will be crowned the champion of champions. Back to College Crossfire, the Tournament of Champions. Before we finish, we have an announcement to make. As I will be graduating this weekend, y'all need a new host. So your new host of College Crossfire is Zach Leff.
Congratulations, Zach.
Congratulations.
Take a bow. Take a bow.
Take a bow, Zach. We tried to get him on the camera. Oh, there he is. There he is, Zach. There he is. All right, y'all are in great hands with Zach as your host. He's going to do great next year. But for now, it's rapid fire. It's a 1-point game. And you know what that means? Rapid fire's worth 2 points. So you know what that means? It's anybody's game. All right. In the game, Ohio State handled Michigan 56-27. But not before Michigan was handed an unsportsmanlike penalty after 2 Wolverines took off star running back J.K. Dobbins' shoe after a play. Now, this is not a heinous act or intimidation, but rather a mild inconvenience. So how would you mildly inconvenience your opponent?
Pull his pants down.
Okay, coming in hot.
You can pull his pants down, true. But if you, I also just transformed into Robert Trevino. Also, if you could just slightly tap them on the stomach and then whisper them a sweet nothing, everything is gonna be okay. You've then thrown them off, which is more the mental game than the physical. However, the pulling of the pants would be more embarrassing.
Before we continue, I forgot to introduce our guest rapid firist, Senior Arya Bastami. Pleasure to have you, Arya. You're not allowed to get any points. My producers told me no. I would have given you the points of that. But all right. So what about you, John?
Smack talking is 100% the best way to mildly inconvenience your opponent. You know, maybe a little comment about your mom here.
Whoa.
Maybe just subtle, like your uniform's a bit dirty. Why don't I make it a little bit dirtier?
Ooh,
Nice.
okay.
Yeah,
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, I don't know. That's pulling your pants down. That's kind of like harassment. You know, you might get in trouble with that one.
Yeah, I didn't
You
think
gotta
about that.
be careful about that one, Clark. Don't be pulling people's pants down.
Yeah, that's
all right.
just on the football.
John, the mild inconvenience, smack talking. That's a classic one. So you're gonna get the points. John, you go up 14 to Clark's 11 to Arya. You're just here. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're here.
Thank you guys for having me. Yeah.
All right, the Akron Zips entered the upper echelon of losing this year when they completed the first 0-12 season in their history. After their 3-point loss to Miami, Ohio, first-year coach Tom Arth held a press conference where he said the team would use this experience to grow and learn. So if you were a reporter at this press conference, what would you ask the coach?
How does it feel to follow in the footsteps of the Cleveland Browns?
I got I'm a slightly go to that. That was impeccable response.
Okay.
Impeccable response.
All right, y'all too?
Man, this is where my respectful journalistic instincts holding me back on this question. I need time to think.
Arya, you got something?
How was your day? Because your season has not been good. So that's probably what I'd ask.
So looking on the bright side,
Yeah.
maybe you haven't had a great season, but maybe your day's going well. Okay.
That's what I'm hoping for.
All right.
I can.
Let the journalistic integrity go.
Yeah.
To
Let it go.
Let it go.
Let it rip.
Let it go.
Well, I think the best thing to ask is, how did this happen? Because 0-12 is real. That's almost an accomplishment in itself. So really, just how are you going to evaluate the program and be realistic about it?
Oh my
think
gosh.
that-
I love that. The simplicity of how did this happen? Clark, you're getting the points on that one. It's almost an insult in the simplicity of the question. Because just how did this happen? All right, Clark. All right, so we're down to the last question to determine the champion of champions. Going into halftime of the Iron Bowl, the referees put 1 second on the clock after initially saying there was no time left. This extra second allowed Auburn to kick a field goal and cut the lead to 4. Alabama coach Nick Saban screamed at the officials, ripped his headset off in frustration. Sometimes great coaches get in the head of referees in order to get favorable calls later in the game. Now I'll give Saban the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe that's what he's trying to do. So what would y'all do to intimidate referees into giving you good calls?
I would, if I'm intimidating a referee, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Okay, I dress up as a referee. All right, I go to where all the other referees are, and I pretend to be like them. And as soon as they start getting suspicious, I slam my hand on the table and I say, "Listen to me, buddy boys. Okay, if none of you guys give me the calls." And then I walk out. And then I walk out.
So infiltrate, take them down from inside. All right.
Absolutely.
I'd go for the, physical prowess against the refs. I'd have the entire team dress up in refs uniform.
I like it.
But do snakes up and down the stands with the audience in attendance, throwing penalty flags everywhere.
That's like a rough nightmare.
blowing whistles while they're doing the snakes up and down the stands to get in the head of the refs.
Wow, what a spectacle that would be.
Really?
Clark?
I'm not sure if I can top that one, so let's go Tom Herman style. Just headbutt the ref.
Oh my goodness!
That was not a good answer, but it's all I can think of.
That's a pretty good answer, Clark. Oh, all right, we're gonna leave this one up to the audience. All right.
Headbutt!
All right, he's gotta go for the headbutt. All right, that means the winner of the Tournament of Champions is Clark. Do we have time for FaceTime? Yes, we have time for FaceTime. Clark, take it away.
Well, tonight's FaceTime is it's a little bit different because we have Aria and Turner graduating this year. And, you know, Aria, I was on my first episode of Crossfire with, and I'm really going to miss this guy next year.
Yes, you too, man.
So tonight, we have a little tribute.
What?
What?
Good evening and
Oh, for the love of
extensive
I'm gonna miss
sports
you,
coverage
bud.
here on the 40 acres. I'm your host, Arya Bastami, and to kick things off, why not start with the highly anticipated Red River Shootout, continuing its ruthless tradition here in Austin, Texas.
Texas football prepares for a battle of the Blue Bloods. Warning, MLB teams may be closer to the playoffs than they appear. And how will the Longhorn volleyball team fare in December? Don't go anywhere. This is College Crossfire.
With me, Arya Bastami, rocking the flannel. That's right, fall-time calls for flannel and football, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. We're going to deal with the devil, the dark duo, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. You know, nobody likes them. People in New England and bandwagoners, they love them.
That's right, Bailey. We want to welcome in Mr. Arya Bastami. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing well, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Good to have you on, and I want to talk about this Kansas State game first.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. I'm your host, Gardner Minshew. We have a great panel tonight. Should be a great show. I hate to do this, but chicken's gonna win. Like, it's the only thing that can fight you.
I want to add a note. It's orange chicken.
All right, we gotta move on. We gotta move on. Wow, chicken won. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, in my opinion, okay, I like a sharp cheddar.
Okay.
Or pepper jack. I don't think you go wrong.
No.
You get a little melted pepper jack in there.
Oh, I think melted is the key. You gotta go
it has to
melted.
be melted.
Melted,
The cheese
melted.
has.
Give me the hat. Where's the hat? Hook 'em horns.
Here's one thing I know.
What about you, Aria?
All rise! Let me explain why Aaron Judge is getting it. You can boo me all you want.
And for all the panelists and everyone in studio and Master Control, OU sucks. All right, for all the panelists and everyone in studio and Master Control, we'll see you next week. Okay.
Jeez, hold on.
That was nice.
Come here.
That was great.
Not seeing you.
You too, man. You too.
Come on! Oh man. Texas doesn't let you rush.